All right, our next guest. Oh, you guys are in for such a treat. Our next guest is Sara, Dr. Sara King. Like, que Sara, Sara. It's absolutely beautiful. Sara is the co-director of Science and Healing for an organization called Mobius. She is a neuroscientist, a philosopher, a social entrepreneur, and honestly, the person I would most like to sit next to at a dinner party. Wait till you see her, she's just the dynamo. She has worked with Google, Nike, Stanford, Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center, Harvard Medical School, and was recently named a game changer to watch in 2021 by Yoga Journal magazine. She is the founder of Mind Heart Consulting firm, offering the Science of Social Justice Framework and the SystemsBased Awareness Map, which she created not only for healing, but also for transformative, contemplative research and facilitation. Whew. Sara's talk with us today is titled The Science of Social Justice. Please welcome her to the stage. Beautiful. Thank you, my friend.
Hi everyone. Oh, my volume is perfection. I just want to express so much gratitude for seeing all of your beautiful faces today. I must admit there's a lot of glare of light in my face, so I wish I could see you all a little bit closer, but perhaps afterwards. I'm very excited to share with you all today an exploration of my life's work with the science of social justice and how it is that I am theorizing about social justice in, I think, a very different way. So I want to lovingly disrupt whatever it is that you think that you know about social justice. And just take a moment while you're looking at these words on the screen and just notice if there's any narratives or stories in particular that are coming up in your mind. What social justice is about, who it's for, who it belongs to, and maybe even notice if there are any feelings or emotions arising about whether or not you belong in social justice spaces, whether you see yourself reflected there. My hope is that you will receive of this less as a presentation and more as an experience. You're going to see some words, you're going to see some images, but what matters today is much less what is on the screen and what I am saying and what is arising in the experience of your body and your awareness. So I want to take a moment and say that we don't actually know what social justice is. We do not know what social justice is. We have never actually seen that. We have never actually experienced it collectively. So a little bit of an awkward position for me to be in here as the resident expert on social justice to say that no one actually knows what this is. But that's actually very exciting because it means that it is a new frontier for exploration that belongs to all of us. And I love to say, when I'm talking about the science of social justice, that if you have a body, then you deserve well-being. If you have a body, you deserve well-being. And in my theorizing, social justice and well-being are one and the same thing. This is how I'm lovingly troubling the waters. And so I'm going to start with a little bit of an experiment and pray that my clicker is working. Aha. So this is an abstract art piece by one of my favorite artists, Sam Gilliam. It is currently up in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Take a moment, and I would like to invite you all now, if it feels comfortable and it feels compassionate, to place one hand on your heart and the other on your belly. And take 3 of the deepest breaths that maybe you've had the opportunity to do today while gazing upon this gorgeous work of art. I'm going to do it with you. Maybe noticing how your body is making a little bit deeper contact with the chair underneath you. What do you notice about how the color and the textures of this painting are making contact with your awareness? Are there any particular thoughts or emotions or maybe memories that might be arising for you right now? And now bring to your mind, I'm sure we've all come here with some particular subject of concern, some area that we wish to cause transformation in. So bring a person or a place or a cause into your mind that you really care about while looking at this painting. And notice if there is any sort of subtle difference as you're connecting with the body and the breath and looking at this painting, any subtle difference with how it is that you're experiencing this person or place or area of concern that you have. And I'll actually leave a little bit of a moment of silence for you to experience that. It's palpable, the sound of silence in this room. And I want to make a suggestion that part of what it is that you are hearing and attuning to right now is the feeling of being part of a collective nervous system. Yes, we have individual nervous systems, but when we all gather here together, we're a part of a collective nervous system, and collectively, we are being transformed in some way by the way that art gets inside of our bodies and truly moves us. It has the capacity to move us. And how is this so? Up here, I have just a small list of some of the terms that I work with in my neuroscience research. I call them the primary components of the practice of embodied awareness. And embodied awareness is exactly what we were engaging in when we were viewing this art. And I regularly ask myself questions like, what would it mean if we were to apply the power of our awareness? As human beings, we are aware, and that has been built into the magic of our nervous systems. What would it mean for us to bring that power of our attention and our breath, our capacity to concentrate, right? To move our bodies into different postures and alignments so that we show a certain kind of presence with one another? What does it mean when we apply the power of our curiosity, our compassion for self and others? The miracle that we are able to notice and recognize patterns and difference, the presence and absence of certain emotions and thoughts and feelings and memories. The power of our relationality and intentionality, all of these things are stemming from the ways in which our nervous system has been built, and they all matter when we are talking about what well-being is and what social justice has to do with that. Because I want to say that until we begin to bring these qualities of embodiment to our social justice practices, then justice is going to continue to have a meaning of being something punitive. Justice is going to continue to have a meaning of being something defensive, a way in which we are actually aggressing against those who we have deemed to be wrong and are thus on the outside of our awareness, on the outside of our love and our care. And so with that, I told you there was going to be some words you were going to see. With that, here is the definition of the science of social justice that I work with in my research. It is an interdisciplinary theoretical framework using the biopsychosocial model of health. Biopsychosocial, remember that word. Or an understanding of the combined and interrelated biological, right, physiological, psychological or mental and relational dynamics which impact our health and our health behaviors, as well as interpersonal neurobiology to explore and study the impact of intergenerational trauma. I've heard trauma spoken about a little bit up on this stage, and one of the things that I am truly fascinated by is thinking about, okay, what is trauma? Trauma is stress. Trauma is pain. Trauma is related to chronic pain inside of our bodies. And when we are feeling stress, when we are feeling pain inside of our bodies, it has a biological impact on our well-being. It has a psychological impact. It impacts the ways in which we show up and we relate with one another. But also, very importantly, I like to keep in mind that trauma is passed down from generation to generation. It doesn't just belong to us as individuals. There are many studies in epigenetics that show that trauma is passed down potentially between 5 to 7 generations, and that this trauma can actually show up in fight, flight, freeze, or faint in any given moment in our nervous systems, right? Causing us to behave with reactivity, causing a real detriment to our well-being. And so I theorize that when we are truly attending to the health and the well-being of everyone in our society, their physiological health, their mental health, and our relational health, that just might be the actual path to social justice. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And I also want to lovingly disrupt the way that we're looking at social justice with this particular definition. In my research, I like to say the science of social justice is an awareness-based framework, and I am redefining the word social here. This probably isn't new to any of you, but in my research, I am redefining the word social as the embodied experience of our shared interbeing in the context of our relationships. The embodied experience of our shared interbeing in the context of our relationships. It is about the feeling of interdependence. And I'm gonna go a little bit step further, and I am redefining the word justice as loving awareness in action. Loving awareness in action. Thank you, I heard that in the back. I got one. I would like to see a show of hands from anyone in here who feels as though this new definition of justice, loving awareness in action, for how many does that resonate? That is the true meaning of justice. It is not about punishing one another. It is not about he said and she said and othering one another, right? Showing up with all of our intergenerational trauma responses. It is about truly grounding ourselves in the reality of our interdependence. And because it is awareness-based, it is locating justice nowhere else other than in the body. Justice is in the experience of the body, our experience of well-being, in my theory. And so I have a chart, and it is quite complicated, and yes, there's a lot of science on it, but rest assured, I will not rest on this for too long. And the reason why I have this chart up here, this is a chart by Ruby Jo Walker. I can't take the credit for it, I wish I could. And it is looking at the activation of our social nervous system. And so I want you to zoom into the very center of it in the red area where you see the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, right? Fight or flight, we're all familiar with that. And I want to ask you a question. How many of you all have found yourself, especially since, I don't know, 2020, feeling rage, anger, irritation, frustration in a conversation that had something to do about identity, race, gender, religion, culture? How many of you have felt panic or fear, anxiety, worry, or concern in a conversation that was about identity? Okay. Let's go to the top of the chart where it says the freeze response, okay? This is another way, this is another one of the body's trauma responses that is built into the function of our autonomic nervous system. How many of you in this room have felt feelings of shame, being shut down, hopelessness, or depressed or numb in a conversation about identity, race, gender, culture, religion, or class. Okay, that was a lot of us. That was a lot of us. And part of what it is that I'm exploring in the science of social justice is the fact that all of these responses are natural. This is the body's intelligence coming alive to tell us whether or not we feel as though we belong, to tell us whether or not we feel as though we can truly participate in any given moment. And so identity is very important when we're talking about well-being, because so many of us are experiencing these kinds of trauma responses that are keeping us reactive, and that, I think, is a part of why we feel like the nation and the world is so divided right now. We are having a collective nervous system trauma response all day, every day, and then we're trying to walk around like, no, I'm good, I'm cool, right? And it's just not true. If you look at the bottom of the chart, though, where it says social engagement in green words, you can also see that the capacity to socially engage with one another and feel curiosity, openness, mindfulness, joy, being in the present, that too is built into the function of our autonomic nervous system. That too is hardwired inside of us. And that, as a neuroscientist, is something that gives me hope. Because I think that the way that we are moving and fluctuating in between these expressions of trauma and shutting down and anger and panic and worry, and then moving and opening up into socially engaging with one another, there is real power of healing in that. Another diagram. My Systems-Based Awareness Map is a theoretical model of the relationship between internal individual awareness and external and collective awareness that is the next manifestation of the science of social justice. It is meant to be a contemplative tool as well as a diagnostic tool to help us to discover how do we go on a journey of embodied awareness, exploring all the many layers in which we have the capacity to be aware as human beings. I am debuting an exploration of this map at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, although virtually because we're still in COVID, so it's going to be on Zoom. I would love to invite any of you who would like to attend to come. And in this experience, we will be using works of art from the museum's collection to have an embodied exploration of what does it mean to be in the place of, as my mentor, Dr. Dan Siegel says, the plane of possibility? How do we come into that place inside of ourselves where the potential of all possibilities can emerge? What kinds of memories, emotions, feelings, sensations, and thoughts arise when we encounter art that moves us? What does it mean to explore the physiological dimension of our well-being and to connect that, this internal experience happening underneath our skin, to know what it feels like to connect that to the experience of the outside world, where the environment, society, and culture are constantly seeping in and informing us, informing the way that we are showing up to meet the moment. And so with that, this is another one of my favorite works of art. It is called Palm of Love by Betty Sara. And I would love to invite you all, if it feels compassionate, to hold out your hand and look at your palm. In the palm of your hand, there is so much meaning, there is so much resonance, there is so much of the history of your life and your love and your power. The way that you reach out and touch others is in the palm of your hand. And this is also what we are using a lot of the time to interact with technology, correct? Interesting. And so while looking at the palm of your hand and also looking at this painting, what comes to mind in this moment as you are taking these colors into your awareness, into the body, about your capacity to give love, your capacity to heal intergenerational trauma inside of yourself, and thus for the next 7 generations to come. And I also have this question of what technology has to do with harnessing the power of our collective nervous system such that we can experience social justice, we can experience collective well-being, maybe for the first time in human history. And so with that, I wanted to put this slide up there one more time as a reminder of all of our innate, embodied qualities. These are our superpowers. This is the path forward when we're talking about how to heal our collective nervous system. And I see some of y'all are taking pictures, so I'm gonna keep it up for a moment. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me today. Thank you so much, everyone.